We're good?
All right, we are good.
Okay, we call this meeting to order. It is Sunday, May 4th, 2025. It's the Yamhill budget meeting. Can I get a roll call, please?
Davis here.
Herb here.
Mike Wofford here.
Potter here.
Steele here.
Raven here. Wofford here.
Featherston here. Hind here.
Corrigan here.
Husky here.
Aaron here. Kara Corrigan here.
Okay, so we definitely have a quorum. I'm gonna just turn it over to you, Carolyn.
So you will notice, first of all, that the budget number on the front page has changed. We're gonna go through the changes that we made here. By roughly $200,000. That has to do with the fact that after our last budget meeting, I spoke with Ross, and Ross says that we should do the supplemental budget this year to adjust our totals for this year so that we are at a zero balance going into next fiscal year. So that $200,000 is essentially the economic development loan that we were showing in the budget from last time is going to be done this year. As well as part of the loan from the police vehicle reserve, and that will bring us to zero as opposed to a negative balance coming into this next fiscal year. So that's where that change sits. We'll also see that as we go through the funds. And how those transfers are affecting the beginning number. Is Ross on? Do we have Ross?
He is, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
All right, so major changes, or not major, all changes you're gonna see. So the front page has changed. I have adjusted to note that Robert Davis and Paula Turp, we have our budget chair Paula Turp, budget vice chair Robert Davis. If you go into page 4, we have adjusted, the previous budget said 10 full-time employees, that has been adjusted to 9 full-time equivalent employees based off of the police officer position not being in the budget. The budget calendar has been updated and revised. And then as we've changed some of these budgetary numbers, the all city recap has been revised to an extent. Again, you're gonna see that 10,220,000 number that's on the front page.
Where are you now?
Page 13. So if we go into the general fund, when we are looking at the general fund, like I said, the transfer from economic development that was showing in the previous version of the budget, as well as the portion of police vehicle reserve that was showing in the previous budget is going to be absorbed this year, or needs to be absorbed this year via supplemental budget by the council. That will actually, based off of forecasting, that will take us to a zero balance at the beginning of the year because we were running in a deficit this year. So that brings us to a zero balance at the end of this year as a beginning number. So our beginning number will be zero, and then everything budgeted after that will go, everything budgeted after that, you're gonna see the transfers in from other areas and other departments. This also does include transfer in from water and sewer based off of doing a proposed budgeted step increase as well as a 3% COLA. So that is reflected in this. Again, that's up to the budget committee to decide if that's where they want the numbers to sit, if that's how they want it to look. But I do want to let you know, I sent everybody an email saying this is roughly how much it would cost the city to do this. And so this is reflected in this budget. You will see the transfer in.
I have a question, and it's
Yes.
just to clarifying to my mind. Okay, so I'm on page 19. Line 33. Could you tell, or would you remind me what PVR is?
Police Vehicle Reserve Fund. So this budget essentially, in order to balance the general fund here without taking too much out of any other fund, we are collecting the contingencies out of the reserve funds that are in the general fund. So we're trying to keep the contingencies that are currently in the general fund. That's what we're gonna use to make the general fund financially solvent. So you're gonna see those transfers in. Those transfers are all from the reserve funds that are in the general fund specifically. The Acer, the City Hall Reserve, the Police Vehicle Reserve. And then you do see the sewer and the water fund. Those do account for the budgetary increases in reference to payroll.
And if I can ask, and we're still including the grants that we have not received?
They are included in the budget, yes. However, the money is not spent unless we receive the grants.
Right, right, but it's still part of the
Correct,
$10,220,124.
correct.
I don't believe that should be, but why would you include money that you have not received? Why would you not do something later, maybe a supplemental budget or something to include this funding once you get it, should you get it? Because right now, we all know that the government is in turmoil. Grants are like, who knows? We may never see that money. We may see it, we may never. So I don't see why it would be included in our bottom line.
So essentially, when you're looking at the operating budget, it's not necessarily 100% budget that's gonna, or money that is gonna be spent. However, and can you do it later on as a supplemental? You can, absolutely. It does create more work. If you're accounting for it now and saying we are expecting this and this is what we're looking at foreseeing to come our way, it is beneficial to budget for it now so that we know what to expect in the long run. However, I think, have you guys received any updates on any of those grants recently?
Yes. So I spoke with Senator Merkley's office earlier this week. And we're just waiting for an award letter. That is in the process, and FEMA money has been freed for the state, so we're waiting for it to trickle down to our level. But that's for the water tank. So Merkley money would be the transmission. And then the FEMA money would be for the water tank.
Okay.
And just to add on to that, I just signed the maintenance agreement. I saw that, Shay, for the reservoir for the FEMA money. So it sounds like things are rolling pretty quick.
Because if you don't include it, then you can't include the budget for the projects that it's going to.
No, I
And
understand.
so it just delays.
I'm just worried that it might fall through in the end and then.
If it falls through, then they just don't do those projects.
Yeah, that money is a separate line item, so it's not like commingled with our general fund, so it's easier for them to keep track of, so.
And Bob, also, if it doesn't take place this year, for example, let's say January 1st, we're awarded, or so that would be actually July 1st of next year. We were awarded FEMA money. It holds, creates a placeholder by leaving it in there for that, the budget line to exist. So the Merkley money's been on a budget line item for 2 years at this point.
I believe 3.
3 years, but we still haven't received the money. It's just a way to hold it in place. So that
And-
when we get it, we can spend it.
And to know that that project is looking at happening, what we want to do. But like, for example, with the Merkley grant, we have budgeted separately line item just in case we didn't get that for the transmission line.
Right, no, I understood.
Now, with the FEMA grant, there's no way we can budget for that without that grant happening. So no monies would be spent if that grant does not happen.
Here, can I ask just kind of an educational question? Is there any way that we could balance the transfer in from water and sewer, like a 50-50?
Yeah, absolutely.
That wouldn't hold any of this process up, would it? I mean,
It would not, Because if you all, if the budget committee as a whole agrees to do that, we can absolutely do that. Now, I can tell you why I did it the way that I did it. And again, it's personal perception, so realistically speaking, your input is valuable in this decision-making. The reason why I split it the way that I split it is because the 40,000 that's coming in from the FEMA, that's why you're seeing those numbers so skewed, the 75 and the 25.
Okay.
40 is from the FEMA. And then the offset difference, and we'll get to this in a minute, is because water has a better contingency right now than Stewart does with the projects that you want to do. So I was trying to leave a little extra money in contingency in sewer. However, when we get to, well, I'll go over this really quickly and we'll get to this in a moment. We also have readjusted our budgeting for the planning planning fund. It looks like we
need to hold on that.
I've adjusted the numbers. It looks like we may not have to spend as much in planning in the general fund this year. So that's being adjusted for as well.
Yeah, thanks for that refresher, because I did forget about the FEMA process, the
Right.
FEMA dollar.
So that's where that discrepancy is sitting.
Thanks.
Question. Last week we had a line item for the FEMA at $40,000, because that's part of that 90 that we can move to the,
Correct.
you've included it now in that 75?
I've rolled it into the 75 at this moment in time. This beginning page, that one still said the water fund. It's when you get to the water fund specifically that it says the FEMA transfer out. If you guys would like that separated out so it's more clear in reference to how you read it, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I just don't want it to get transferred twice, so you've got
No.
a $75,000 coming in from water, whether we get to FEMA or not, correct? That's what you're showing here.
Yes, except for the fact that the work that would be done on the FEMA, if we don't get that, the work that would be done on the FEMA would not have to happen.
Understood. But if it's not a line item showing it's the FEMA grant has $40,000, then you're pulling $75,000 out of water,
Correct.
whether the water gets the FEMA grant or not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we could then move another 40 over if nobody knows that the 40 was supposed to be included in that line, correct?
So, yes, and if, like I said,
One more point.
yeah,
The FEMA grant does not need to be paid back
no,
if we have a single line item of 40,000. Being a line item of 75,000, we have to pay that back.
so you are correct. And for, just to make it more clear, it probably is a better idea to separate those two out. Again, when I'm looking at it as it's a transfer from the water fund, but separating it out to make it two separate line items, so it's clear on what those two line items are coming out for, that is actually a better idea.
So there's a lot to do here, so that's why we're here to help.
No, yeah, these are just what I put out there. You guys are the ones that decide how you want to see it. So I don't have a vote in this. I'm just explaining what I do.
Okay, can we all, just to make that change, let's just kind of do a quick okey dokey and have her, so that she knows. Is everybody okay with making that change to having it separated out by the FEMA grant and water fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Anybody against it though?
yeah. Okay.
The rest of the general fund, the only changes that were made, well, let me step back. In administration, you are going to see that, in all of the funds that have personnel in the general fund, you're going to see that step increase budgeted for and that 3% cost of living budgeted for. So they are budgeted for in this budget. Again, that is not something that I have a say in. That is the budget committee. So if the budget committee decides that that's how they want the numbers to stay, this is what it will look like. If they decide they do not want it to stay that way, or if they would like to see those percentages like a lower cost of living, or just do a cost of living and not a set increase budgeted for, then we can adjust those numbers again. But because that is where we where we sat with the last meeting, that's what you are seeing in terms of these budgeted numbers.
So once again, if we budget for it, it doesn't mean the city council has to vote on it and spend the money. It's just been budgeted for and it's.
It's been
if they do,
budgeted
it's
for,
accounted.
yes.
One more quick question on 19. The transfer in from the police vehicle reserve of 28, that was 50 last week.
So part of that money is going to be coming in this year,
Okay.
yes, for the supplemental. So it will have to, the
I thought
supplemental,
I heard that. I just wanted to make
yes, the supplemental will have to include part of the police vehicle and all of the economic development fund in order to make it balance to zero for this year.
sure. Okay. So does this deplete to zero the
Yes.
police vehicle reserve? All right.
Yes.
On the administration, I have just a question or a thought that I've been having is we just laid somebody off and we're not refilling a position, but when we were discussing the 3% for the cost of living, that was actually above what, I think somebody said it was 2.8. Is there a bad public perception? Do we risk being, having some legal actions towards us for laying people off and then giving people raises that are above what our local raise is supposed to be? So just something to kind of think about, you know?
So I did speak to Emily, our legal department, about that exact thing, and she said, although publicly and politically, you may want to avoid that. She didn't find that there was anything illegal in it.
And that's something that, you know, all department heads can consider, or the council can consider, in saying, you know, you can say, okay, well, it's budgeted for 3%, let's hold it back to 2.5, or, you know, whatever. That's a council decision.
Well, and in the past, the council's actually given larger raises for
Yeah.
cost of living. So, I mean, it's up to you guys.
But I have a question which might, Terry, you know, but maybe Ross could speak to as well. If I understand correctly, if one gets COLA, all get COLA.
That is my understanding.
And that is set because that is our rule by the city, and that can be changed if we choose to. So you could
That I
say
can't
it's
answer.
department to department. So you could say everybody that's in public works would qualify for a COLA of this amount. And everybody in this department would qualify for a COLA of a lesser or greater amount. But so that way it doesn't have to be straight across.
That would, I would defer that question to Ross because I am not
If I may,
up in how COLA gets separated out. If you can, how you do it.
Okay.
I would avoid doing that. I think that opens a can of worms that, it doesn't create a good cohesive team situation. That's just me. I think what I heard Ross say last time is like, yes, if you do it to one, you have to do for everyone, the COLA. And I thought he had said it has to be the same amount, but I might have misheard.
So currently it does. My question simply was, can we adjust it if we needed to or one?
You probably can, but again, that's council.
Is Ross on?
He is on and unmuted,
I'm on. Hello?
hearing him well.
Are you hearing me okay? Hello?
Oh,
There you are.
that's the computer, hold on.
Oh,
Say it
Hello?
one more time.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Ross?
Yes. I'm here. Hello?
Oh, it's coming up.
Ross?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm
we're
on.
On the computer, I guess.
Mayor Corrigan, my understanding is that outside of the police union, all other staff have to be equal for the cost of living. They don't all have to receive the step increase. That's according to their merit.
Right.
But the cost of living is across the board for all staff.
No, that's how it is now. But I guess where I'm coming from
Coming?
is that because we chose that, or is that like a state mandate, or?
Hello?
It's-
If
Am
I'm
I
not
coming?
mistaken, it's,
Hold on just
that's
one moment.
across the board for the state. That's not just
My
the city.
understanding.
Ross has got an answer.
Hello? Am I on?
We can hear you, Ross. Go ahead.
I've been listening. I would say the cost of living that you guys award is completely up to you. I don't think there's any legal implications. You can give it to one or give it to all. The issue is the table that everybody works off of now, the rates table in the back of the budget has cost of living goes to everyone if it goes to one. Places I've been before in my experience in doing this, they either give a cost of living or they don't. They don't parse it out individually. And they usually budget for step increases, but step increases don't have to be awarded. So you don't have to give any step increase. You don't have to budget for a step increase. You guys have got complete flexibility there as well. But if you're going to give a cost of living, give it to everyone or don't give it at all. And of course, I would be against not giving it at all. The cost of living went up, and I don't think it's fair to the employees that, you guys don't try to chase the cost of living the way the table's set up right now. It's so much more expensive to try to replace employees than it is to try to keep them. So those are my words.
I would back that up. The government that I'm employed by, they have the employment chart as well that the city now has. And they apply the cost of living to that chart across the board. And then if somebody merits an increase, then they do a step increase to whatever increase they receive. But across the board, that whole chart gets the cost of living.
Well, I'm gonna make this comment. And the majority of you have all heard this before, but I worked for the state 15 years, and out of those 5 years, no cost of living, no step increase, and that was across the board for all of child support. The DAs may have been somebody different, but where we're looking at having zero money and moving the amount of money that has to be moved just to make ends meet, so to speak, I think it's, and I'm not saying this about any of the people that work here, but I think it's a major mistake to do that. This whole committee is supposed to be trying to balance the budget, and God forbid if anything would happen in the city and we needed some money, where's it going to come from? I mean, is it going to come from Public Works? Because they're the only ones that really have any money in the bank. And that's all I'm seeing is, oh, we'll take from Public Works. We'll move it from Public Works. Really? I know I've never been on the budget committee before and I've only sat in one meeting, but I am shocked at what I'm hearing. I can't even believe what I'm hearing.
So in the past, we've always budgeted for the cost of living. And it's up to the council whether they apply that to the wages or not.
Yeah, I
But
understand
as a
that.
budget, we want to make it available to them. If we don't, then their hands are locked unless they do a supplemental budget. And they can't go and give those cost of living raises out.
And I understand, I understand that. I
I'm
really
just saying, as a committee, if we can balance the budget with 3% cost of living increase, I say we do it, leave it up to the council to decide whether they're going to actually apply that or not. Now, saying that, the council in the past has always applied whatever cost of living we've provided.
I know it.
But they now know that we're in a real tough budget situation. So July 1st, they may not just say, hey, give everybody the cost of living. Just because it's budgeted does not mean the money needs to be spent.
I understand that, but why would it even be discussed if technically there's no funds to cover it without borrowing from here or there, or because AJ's no longer here, or because Shelley's no longer here? I
would say just for like Ross's sake, like what Ross spoke to, just employee retention. I mean,
I understand that, Jason. I really honestly do, but and I have heard that over and over again, but I can guarantee if anybody from here went to a new employer, they would not have anywhere near the benefits that they have now. Nowhere near.
I don't think that's true.
I do.
I do not. Kara could go work for Washington County, we'd be shit out of luck, and she'd have such a better benefit package.
I'm not talking about.
Washington County's getting
county-
zero cost of living increases this year, 0%.
And I'll tell you, Washington County, I just talked to a guy that I used to work with. The DAs are moving to the child support office in Hillsborough because they can't afford to keep them there.
They eliminated all of the child support division, the entire division they've eliminated and cut
Yeah.
from the budget.
What I'm trying to say.
Ouch.
But what I'm trying to say is if they went into a private sector job, if they went to the state, when times are bad, too bad, so sad, so to speak. You know, you don't, just because you want to be able to give an increase to somebody doesn't mean that you're gonna be able to do it. Not only that, you're gonna have further to drive, it's just,
So Patty, if I
it's
can-
just totally different than the way that this city's been run. Because it's run as if they've got an unlimited amount of resources to bring in revenue.
So I think that your points are all valid. Let's start there. But let's move back to what Mike Wofford said. By showing it in this budget as something you can do, that allows you to have that argument with council. Right?
Yeah.
If we don't list it-
apply the wages,
Right.
then that's kind of money in the bank if you don't.
Yeah, because if we don't take money from the water fund, let's, and put it in here for cost of living adjustments for everybody, that means that even though there's a whole lot of money in public works, they cannot give a cost of living allowance. You can't do it.
So again, it just
Legally,
leaves a
you cannot do
placeholder
it.
to have the discussion later.
So in order to give anybody a cost of living allowance, and I have worked in places that I didn't get a cost of living allowances for a while. The city has went several years without giving any cost of living increases. And because we were broke, more broke than this, this budget is way beyond. We ran this city with a budget of, was it 3 million? Okay.
Yeah,
so-
it's been a while though, since that happened.
Yes, and during those times, nobody got a raise,
Well, and
and.
Well, you also, in those times, when you had to borrow money from the water,
Yeah.
there was no cost of living offered. And they actually did the hard work of making cuts throughout the year to a point that later in the year that
We
it was
back.
allowed.
Yeah, but, so budgets, they fluctuate.
I understand
They
that.
fluctuate. If we can do this and we put it in the budget, it doesn't mean that it has to happen. But if you don't put it in the budget, it cannot happen.
I understand that.
So
Okay, next.
to everybody's point, if we take the 40 and we break it out for water, right? And we put it as a resource. We don't have a contingency of 40 or more. If you get that money moved over to the fund. Or if you don't get that 40,000, but it looks like it's been budgeted in, right? We spent it somewhere, even though we don't have it, it's paper money. What are we gonna do then if we don't have, because, technically, we're in a deficit starting this budget, because we've had to borrow money. Even though we show starting balance of 0, we've got a deficit that we have to pay back.
So with that being said, understanding what you're saying is that assuming that that money is spent and then we're in the whole 40,000 if we don't get that FEMA money. However, the budgetary numbers for this year, for example, for when you look at did I print out the financial statement for you for the general fund? When you look at, Yeah, and then it has the annual year too. So when you look at what is budgeted for, what is budgeted for isn't necessarily spent. So there is a differentiation in what the numbers that you budget for, and you do try and pad a little bit because there are things that will happen along the way throughout the course of the year. But then there's other line items that don't get spent at all. So in the big picture, I would see it almost as a wash, because the only time you're looking at implications from that are gonna be if you are going over, and this year being one of them, based off of the audit, because of those PERS polls that happened. So if you go over, the auditors look at your bottom line numbers. If you go over as a whole in the general fund compared to what you budgeted for, that's where you're seeing a problem. However, 99% of the time, you do not spend every dollar that's in the general fund. You put a little extra in there for just in cases, but they normally don't get spent to 100%. Now, if we were in a situation where we were like, let's say what Paulo said, where we only had a $3 million budget to work with, and you're looking at, you want every single penny being accounted for and spent for. I mean, Kim talks about, we reuse binders and file folders in City Hall over and over and over again. Going back to that, let's save money and let's not spend money. So in the big picture, I do not see a problem. I don't believe that we would go over $40,000 in the general fund.
Okay.
So, but that's my perception based off of looking at the accounting software and where we sit and what we spent.
Let me ask you.
Mhm.
And I mean this in a fabulous manner of your hard work. How long have you been working on this budget and these numbers? Months?
No, and I will tell you why, because I started probably in January or February, which was a wish list of this, if it was a spreadsheet of if we got what we wanted, where would we want to budget numbers? So that's where we started. You can't start actually doing a budget until you get the auditor's numbers back. And when you get the auditor's numbers back, which came in extremely late, that's when we went, oh no, we've got to make some changes. So when the auditor's numbers came back, which I think was the middle of March-ish, somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
It was a adjusting and fixing and calculating, and
The reason I brought this up is so that everybody here knows if we all had your insight into this budget, we probably wouldn't be asking as many questions.
well, I don't know that anybody, I will tell you flat out that this year it is much more clear to me after seeing full-time a year's worth of the accounting software and inputting invoices and paying bills and where the numbers sit and what the reality of it is. This year also, we will have the benefit, just to make sure everybody knows, our audit is scheduled for the beginning of September,
Good.
which means we will have the audit numbers back in plenty of time this year
Yeah,
in
it
order.
always used to be like November, October, November, so.
The auditors they were absorbed by another company. The auditors were absorbed by another company this last year, and so new contracts had to be signed, and as the dominoes fall, the delay process, we didn't get everything back until mid-March, which is
Yeah,
about 3 months later than you want.
right. Yes, absolutely.
So,
I do have a question on page 20.
yes,
For the payroll costs,
yes.
those are down significantly, which is unusual. From last year, we had 47 and now it's at 35. Is that?
So payroll costs, FTE payroll, right above that is gonna be your wages.
Right.
And then payroll costs below it are all of the taxes as well as the benefits as well. So the big difference that you're seeing right there is the elimination of the city administrator position.
Oh, okay, okay. I get it.
Which page was that?
20.
20? Yeah.
But yet it's still included in the budget, the city administrator position.
So that has to stay as a line item for 3 years before it can fall off. So anything that's in the budget that has money allocated to it has to stay for 3 years. That's when you're looking at the left-hand side of the budget, the actual 22, 23. Next year, when that's 23, 24, if there's no money in that line item, that specific line item can fall off eventually, but it does have to have a placeholder for at least 3 years. That also doesn't mean that a city administrator couldn't be budgeted for in the future.
And overtime is blank.
We've never, it's been eons since we've had overtime.
So that was one of those things, overtime,
And now.
No, you bank your time. There's no overtime for admin.
for admin, for the general fund, there's not any overtime allocated. However, again, to what Robert was asking earlier, there was, when we were looking at a big picture before we got the auditor numbers back, what would we like to see added into the budget? And there are a handful of things throughout this budget that you'll see that we were thinking, okay, this might be something that would be nice to add. Adding overtime back into admin was one of the things that was discussed, but again, there's not money to do that, so.
Is that in, so there's no overtime, but there's comp time. And my understanding is that at certain level or whatever, an employee can withdraw from their comp time.
Budget funds are available.
Okay, all right.
90 hours and it's contingent upon
It's what, pardon?
funding. 90 hours.
Okay. I mean, I knew that there was a way for them to get that money, but if it's not budgeted for, then.
Correct.
And just to let you know, our work week starts Sunday, so we can, on Friday, we can like take a longer lunch or, whatever, so we can adjust our schedule. So that we aren't getting overtime.
So, and realistically speaking, the reason why that went into the budget specifically was not because of me, but it was because of the office manager position, who also is the court clerk, who works an 8-hour day, and then Thursdays once a month comes in and does court for several hours, as well as the city recorder's position, who in addition to her 40-hour work week, she also does all of the meetings that happen throughout the course of a month. So both of those two positions specifically consistently go over 40 hours a week, and there is not overtime to adjust for that.
But they still get their comp time.
They do still get the comp time, yes.
So I have a question on page 23, since we're talking about overtime.
Okay.
Page 23, line item 5 shows an increase of $6,000 for overtime. I'm just wondering why?
So that one, out of all of the funds in the general fund, I believe, actually, let's look at parks. Parks might have overtime as well, unless it's being absorbed by. No, I think there must only be overtime in water and sewer, and then streets. Let's see if streets has overtime as well. I don't know if it does or doesn't.
I would imagine that's compensation for losing an office.
Yes, that's exactly. So adding some to overtime because of the loss of a position, of a budgeted position.
And not for Greg because he's exempt.
Correct.
No, I understand.
Salary is exempt.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, good deal. Thank you.
So,
Oh, sorry.
I've got a question, it might just be a typo, but on page 66, you show, second one down, FTE by employee office manager under city administrator. But I don't see that title anywhere else. Is that just a typo?
Hold on, 66?
Yeah, 66, yeah. FTE by employee and fund.
Yeah, I got reclassified.
Yes, yes, the city clerk, court clerk was reclassified to office manager and, thank you, I need to actually go back and change all of
And
it.
that was done in
Oh.
September
Yes,
or October. of last year.
So
yes,
that's gonna be.
I got my
where the
3-cent
City
raise.
court clerk is then on mine
Correct.
too, okay, all right.
Sounds like you don't need COLA then.
Did you start some can returns?
You wanna know where else you're saving money?
What?
You wanna know where else we're saving money? When you've been here so long and both of us are capped on our vacation, right? 16 hours, is it a pay period or is it a month? Yeah, so 16 hours of my time and 16 hours of his time every month. You're getting 32 hours for free.
Why don't you take a day off?
You take a day off, you earn. When you've been so long, it's like I would
We're capped at 200.
200 we're capped.
You know, like cruel, because we're capped at 200. It's been that way
Yeah.
for like 7 years.
But you need to take time for yourself. That's part of our employee retention. That's why you get that time off, like,
Oh.
it's a whole nother thing, Kim.
Oh.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why we got somebody that went from part-time to full-time to help absorb some of that when you're gone. Yeah,
Let's get through budget.
let's go through budget. You're using your sick time for vacation.
it's an argument we have all the time.
I'm hearing a 6-hour workday for her.
So
The next
conversation on it.
Not an argument, conversation. It is a continual conversation.
So before the page 20,
Yes,
under other requirements, all of the transfers in, these are where we're gonna show paybacks, right?
correct. So when we get to per the previous budget, it was asked that those be put in as a line item, the funds that are gonna be paid back.
Right.
No, you're not seeing an amount there because there's not being paid back this year.
Okay, so that was gonna be my question. Is there you have to start paying them back even if it's $1 versus,
So the council can decide if if this is all accepted, the council can decide the term length and rate that they're paid back. My personal preference would be that they're paid back as quickly as possible to the best effort of the city. And I do have the numbers of what the transfers are going to be. And when we do start paying them back, those numbers will go in there. But right now they're showing that, yes, we have to pay these funds back.
and when I brought that up last week, all of these were going to be put in this budget. And so you don't have to pay something back the same year you borrow it.
Correct.
But now that some of these, like the contingency fund, are actually being transferred previous to this budget, do we have to pay some of that back in the next year?
Not immediately, no.
Okay.
Karen, one last question, sorry. On line 19, contract services has been reduced dramatically. Does that include the DRC and the planner and the judge?
That doesn't come out of that. The
So-
DRC
Is
doesn't.
that elsewhere?
The
Yes.
judge is listed separately, as is the court interpreter. Sorry, Karen.
It's okay. So yes,
No, right?
the judge and the court interpreter both come out of court. You will see those there. The reason why that number and planning is where primarily in the planning department, primarily your contract services are showing there. Now with
DRC is water and sewer, but not sewer anymore, correct?
correct. So different contract services are split out throughout different funds. The planning department takes the biggest portion of the contract services for a planner. However, what this is going to be for, is, oh, let me think off the top of my head.
Water delivery?
No,
Can't be.
House
I'd have to go look at the software to tell you what is, but janitorial has its own, so
Is
I,
that for like talking to Ross? Is he part of?
Ross would be part of contract services for admin, and there's a handful of others, and We had it high at one point in time. I think part of it had to do with different people we were contracting services with that we no longer are contracting services with. So based off of real numbers over the last 3 years, I brought it down because it doesn't need to be that high.
Thank you.
Are we gonna just go on page by page, or do you guys have other questions? How do you wanna do this today?
Page by page works for me.
Just do page by page. Is anybody, are we all ready to go? I don't think there's any changes on page 21.
21 will not have any changes. 22, the only changes you're gonna see are the wage step increase and the 3% COLA, if that is something that is approved. Police, exactly the same. No other numbers have changed there other than that.
I've got a question on the police.
Yes,
And it's been brought up and discussed a couple times of losing the police department, going to county, right? So Greg, on these resources that come in today, right? If we were to go to county, all that would go away, right? So that $80,000 to $100,000 we get in resources would go away.
Some of it, yes.
Some of it, so, but as a city, would we still get some of the grants that are for the police department, or would they go to county then?
County.
Okay, and, the court fees, right? I mean, we don't get a big percentage of that now, but if our city's no longer writing tickets, is all that gonna then go to the county?
The majority of it, not just county, but elsewhere it does go. So, but that there would be, depending on what is decided by the city and by council with contracting with county, to have that stay here. So in other words, they could contract to pay for having a deputy that does traffic, that would focus on traffic in the city. But that wouldn't just be an expected thing with that contract. It would be something that would be an ask of them, but they would provide.
I mean, if you do the numbers like to like, it's like if we lose that revenue, then the numbers they gave us to have 2 officers like we have now, basically are a wash. You know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, but
Yeah, and
I was
then,
just curious about
and
that.
then the user fees for Wycom, the 22,000, that would still be paid by the city.
Really?
Yes.
And the same applies to the court. The county could do the court services as well.
Right, I mean, we wouldn't have the expenses, but we also wouldn't have any other revenue.
Correct. Mhm.
Why would we have to pay Wycom if it's county covering us? Just seems strange.
It's the city.
Because how that works is Wycom has contracts with each of the venues. So each city has their own contract. And it doesn't go, and the county has theirs as well. So McMinnville, Newburgh, Carlton, Yamhill, Amity, Lafayette, Dayton, Willamette, Sheridan, all have their own, that they pay their own user fees.
And that's based on population, isn't it?
Based on volume of call service and population.
Whether they have law enforcement or not in that
Yeah.
specifically in that town.
All I have.
Quick question, minor detail. County accounting clerk, is that supposed to be accounting manager?
yes. Are you talking under municipal court?
Yes.
Yes, and I can change that. And I will tell you why I missed that, is because the accounting manager doesn't get paid out of court, so I didn't look at it. But I can absolutely change it, just like I'm gonna change office money. So that it all reads the same.
Do we have to add a new line for that, or can we just go in and change the name?
Yes.
Okay.
Going through, getting to the reserve funds, you will notice those transfers out into the general fund to make sure that the general.
you want, please?
24. So all of these are the reserve funds, the admin reserve fund, the police vehicle reserve fund, the city hall reserve fund. All of those contingencies are coming out to make sure that they still sit under the umbrella of the general fund. They're just moving out of these special funds into the main general.
Water billing software.
It's all done.
It's done. It was a one-time fee. It's taken care of. And we will have there is an annual fee. You recall what it was?
I think it's around 2,000.
Around 2,000. That's being paid out of the admin reserve, contract services, or not contract services, support services. Planning, this version versus the last version, the city planner that we had budgeted for at $24,000. We are believing that, we can save some money there, and that will be 14,000 if the, planner agrees to the terms.
Who's the new planner?
The current planner that we are working with is Kurt Fisher through Willamette Valley Council of Governments.
What are we changing again?
There is a very good possibility we are changing again.
Okay.
Um,
Am I reading this wrong? So in each of these funds, each of the reserve funds has money coming in, and then at the bottom, the entire fund is transferred out on each of them.
yes,
And so in the end, all the reserve funds are essentially zero.
yes.
Why then we have reserve funds? Why don't we just put that money in where they're being transferred to?
So the auditors give us the beginning number for each fund when the audit comes back. And these funds existing as they are, we have to have a beginning balance number that we start with per the auditors. So those are the beginning balances. Now, one of the things that we will make note of is with the economic development transfer that's going to happen this year via supplemental budget. We actually could not transfer the entirety of the fund over this year because we do still have to budget for it for next year because there is personnel that is taken out. So unless we decide that we're not going to pay personnel out of economic development and just eliminate that fund altogether, then we wouldn't have to budget for this year and we would be able to take all the funds. But because we have beginning balance numbers for each fund, that's where we have to start. We can take that money out, but it can't just not exist in that fund to begin with.
So next year, when there's a zero fund in that, you could eliminate it then because it will be empty?
Again, I think it has to stay for 3 years.
At zero?
Yes. However, the intention is that we will, over the course of however long is decided, all of the monies that are taken out of these funds will go right back into them because the funds were started for a reason. And the reason for having all of these funds still exists. It just is going to help the general fund this year. So it sits under the general fund umbrella, but kind of off on its own. So we can sort of fluidly move the money back and forth because it does sit, it's not like water and sewer that sits completely in its own department or fund.
I understand, thank you.
So we do want to put the money back and keep those funds because they will benefit us at some point in the future for different things.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes. Utility recap, a couple of things,
Page, please.
31. The big things you're gonna notice here are, the payroll because of the 3% cost of living and the step increase budgeted for, and the transfers. So those two things are of what you're gonna make note of. Nothing else in these funds has changed. Other than, and we can go back, but I wanna make this note very quickly. So it was asked of me to make sure that the sidewalk deposit was put back in and the deposit refund was put back in. And I do apologize, that was my fault to begin with. It was actually listed as two separate things. It was listed as security deposits and sidewalk deposits. So because there was no money in the sidewalk deposit end of things, I didn't realize that it was actually sitting in security deposits. So there is money that has been taken in for sidewalk deposits as security deposits. And so those numbers reflect that. So they are added back into the street fund. You will see income, sidewalk deposit. Where are we? Page 52.
Can you just announce the pages as you change?
Yeah.
Because I have no idea how we got to 51.
You're not reading my mind when I do this?
We're on page what, 52?
52. Sidewalk deposit has been added back in at $1,500. And then on page 53, under capital outlay, the deposit refund has been added back in. Any questions?
Page 31 on capital and uses for water. So Jason, that 4,098,000, is that? We're gonna use all of that next year for the new water tank, or is that what that's for?
No.
Okay, so how do we spend $4 million on?
Just the course of operations and maintenance, you'll see. I think there's a little bit of a buffer with that grant though, with both those grants. It's the grant. We're looking at roughly almost 600,000 with both of those.
So that's no special projects. I'm not looking at the actual page, but that was just the general. recap there.
The 4 million number,
Yes,
that does include projects. That's everything.
For a large project or just a bunch of?
There's a couple of them that Jason is looking at. So if we go to page
38?
yes, page 38.
Okay, so it is the FEMA tank of 3,150,000.
Yes.
That's the big one.
So that's a big one.
All right.
And then he's got the Olive, Camellia, Morris Valley, which is essentially the third part of 3rd Street down here. We did I think this is actually A. Yeah, we did B and C this year, so A will be done next year, as well as the intake structure. And then the transmission line, the tie line feasibility is budgeted for if the Merkley grant does not come. But we've been told it is.
All right. Curious, I was a large number there.
It does include the FEMA.
So this is where, on page 38 is where you're gonna split that $75,000 out as well.
Transfer you.
The transfer out to general fund, so
Yes.
it's gonna be,
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Well, we only have to pay 35 back and not the full
What?
75. That way we
Yes.
only have to pay 35 back.
Right.
yes.
So are we looking at line 22 and 23? That's 20 or 36,000, not 35. Are they looking at a different one?
26 on page 38.
Oh, okay, sorry. Adding these two up. Plus.
You guys let me know when you're ready. Clear? Okay. None of the special funds in water have, the depreciation fund, SDC, debt service. No changes on any of those. In the sewer fund, again, the only changes you're gonna see here are the transfer out for the cost of living and step increase, as well as the cost of living and step increase for employees working out of the sewer fund. And then you do have, Jason, the three projects that you're looking at this year for sewer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the disinfection is a continuation of a project that's, yes. Currently working.
And so the transfer out for personnel services into the general fund. I don't see that. Is that part of that 70 or 75 and 25? Or the 25 for the sewer fund?
The 25 transfer out to general fund, the 25,000, that's what is the transfer out to the general. Fund.
But that's lumped into this 166,408.
What page are you looking at?
It's
40.
line number 16.
Yeah, might be there. Okay.
Page 47.
47.
Page what?
47.
47.
My understanding was the 25 was just the balance. The budget, right? It wasn't, does this include the FTE and COLA and STEP?
Yes, for yes.
Okay.
No changes made to the reserve fund, the sewer SDC, or the sewer debt service. As we go into the street funds, there are a couple of things in streets that I'm going to make note of. So I did mention that we have put back in on page 52, the sidewalk deposits. And then on page 53, the deposit refund, which is its counterbalance.
Should it be the same amount?
Based off of what we take in and what we give refunds on, that's where the numbers sit. I mean, it can be the same amount, but that's what we're looking at historically.
Because generally, we just hand it back. The deposit.
the check?
Well, no, I mean, we issue them a check for,
Correct,
once they get it
correct,
completed.
correct. And they can be the same, I'm just going off of the numbers that we're looking at over the last 3 years of what we take in for sidewalk deposits and what refunds that we've given back. So if you want it to be equal and the same, we can do that.
Question on 52, the state gas tax revenue. Will that change for us? It's state, so it's coming from the state, I'm assuming. Will it change for us now that we have additional gas station in town? Does that change? Because we're selling more gas.
We should see an increase, based off of what is coming in. I have accounted for this gas station being open the last few months. I'm hesitant to go too much over than what expectation is because I don't want to over budget in income. So next year, we'll probably have a better idea of where we sit with that.
Okay. So it's not based off the whole state and we just get a portion. It's based off of what our city produces in traffic and gas usage?
I believe it's both. I believe it's a combination of both. But Ross, can you answer that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How is
The-
the gas tax coming?
The state gas tax the revenue that we get from the state gas tax, is that the entire state as well as what we are selling within the city? Or is it, just what we're selling, or is there how does the state?
No,
split
that's-
that out?
If I may, that's coming from the state only. That doesn't include what you're selling in the city. Have you made some sort of resolution for charging a city gas tax?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of either, so that's just state gas tax.
Okay, so it's all coming from the state.
Yes,
Thank you, Ross.
you bet.
And what comes from the state's based off population. Jason was right.
Jason?
While we're looking at streets, if we go to page 54. This was brought to my attention after the last budget meeting that we had. So look under requirements, the transportation system plan. So there is a grant that we will be going after that is to redo our transportation system plan. And our match for that grant would be $21,800 if we get it. So that is being budgeted for. In the CIP list, the transportation system plan, if we have to pay for it, is over $200,000. So we are hoping that we get that grant, and that is what it is being budgeted for.
That's an exceptionally good deal.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take that deal.
Yes.
Several times.
Yes. No changes in any of the storm funds. The park recap, the only changes you're looking at are, again, the cost of living increase as well as the step being budgeted for.
Going backwards a little bit here, so if we do not receive the TSP grant, are we not going to pursue a TSP?
That is something that you need to tell me what you want to do with it, because I literally just found out about this last week. So you tell me what you want to do with it and how you want to handle it, because you do have not in stormwater, but in the street fund in contingency, you have $109,000 left in contingency in SDCs for streets. So with that $200,000 expense, you would have to decide how you want that split out, or if you want to hold.
I'll tell you right now, we're gonna hold if
Okay.
that, you know.
And the nice thing is that it is 100% fundable by SDCs, but it would wipe it out and then you would have to fund it.
Yeah, just in that email chain, it got convoluted, so
Yes.
I'm glad you wrote that. Okay,
So I'm budgeting for the grant match if we get the grant.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Page 65. The
So-
only addition, go
Sorry,
ahead.
with streets, did we account for the SCA, the small city allotment grant? That
I do
was,
not know anything about this grant.
it was prior,
They submitted again.
they did submit that,
They did again.
so should we buffer with,
That's the one I'm following up on.
okay. What was the total cost? City cost,
Okay, tell me what it is.
small city allotment grant?
Do you know the amount?
Is this the one where we were number 5 and they were
Yes.
deciding if they were gonna, okay.
Right, so, and I think the reason that it wasn't included is because we applied for this grant, we did not receive the grant. We were encouraged to apply again next year.
Right.
And then they came back and said, hey, we think we can push it through anyway. And that was the reapplication. So,
I just need to follow up.
Should we have a line item to
Yes.
support that? Because I didn't, obviously Kara wasn't aware, so. We just don't have a monetary amount that we need right now.
The folder's on my desk.
Sorry.
So this would be,
I'd hate to miss out on that.
He's right, because it's a line item, otherwise it's a supplemental budget, right? So does the line item have to have any number in it?
Yeah.
Okay,
in order for it,
Kim will
yes.
have that number.
Yeah.
Yep. or does.
So
We'll
I
have
just need to
one.
know what the grant amount would be that we would be receiving, and then what we would have to spend as the match to create the line item.
Sure.
What does the grant do for us?
Sidewalk improvements, ADA, things of that nature. It's mostly focusing on Third Street by the park and then most of our ADA downtown, like Highway 47.
Gonna add that?
Yes,
You're gonna add that to their
Yeah.
supplemental budget, that's okay, right?
Yeah, I think so.
are we looking to add this in for next fiscal year, or would this be a supplemental budget for this year?
This year, correct?
But there's a line item for grants that come in this conversation, right, already?
Or,
Any grants that come in?
Like
There's a
miscellaneous.
catch-all line item for grants.
I believe in the general fund there is, yes.
The 10948 grant / planning.
Yeah,
Because when you're doing a supplemental budget, that starts to cost a lot of money.
So if
Why
if this
there's a
grant was
line item.
received, we just add it to that line item and then transfer it.
Yeah.
Is that what we can do?
absolutely, and that being the thing is that if we receive it this year before July 1st, but then the money is spent next year, because I don't think you wouldn't be getting all the sidewalks done in the next month and a half, right? So it would have to be, there would have to be a line item in this budget for next fiscal year that shows that even if it's received this year, it can come in as just under the grants line item, and then in this budget for next fiscal year, we'll separate it out and say that this is where this is coming from.
Looks like the total construction cost was 359,300.
So how much were we hoping for?
So, here we- Looks like we would need 260,350. That's not the extent. Trying to read through there. So. Total project, estimated project cost was 307,300.
How much are they saying that we could get as part of the grant?
250,000.
250, and then how much are we saying we're gonna spend? Sorry,
359,300.
359,300. So you're looking at, we need $100,000 from us, is that correct?
So with the 20% markup, I mean, that's, you know, we went through that with the last project, so.
So if that,
And we could always scale the project. I mean, this is what was, well, probably not, because this is what we referenced to and sent off, so.
That's by the book.
Yeah.
so we're saying that they're saying that we could get $250,000, and then the project in cost is gonna be 359,300? Okay,
If we just want to create, like you're saying, Kara, just create that line item with that amount, even if we have to carry it on to 27, 28.
what is, yes, what is this in the CIP? Does it tell me what percentage we can take out of SDCs?
20%.
20%?
20%.
Okay. So then with that being said, the 20,000 sidewalk installation that you have budgeted for in the street fund, would that be put into the 150 that we're looking at that we have to account for?
I mean, we could incorporate it in that project. That way we'd get more additional work from contractors, so. I mean, that would be my mindset. Is to add it. Well, let me go backwards. I would keep that separate. For change orders or things that we want with that project, ads. And just budget for 159,000.
So then you're gonna have to figure what do you want to adjust? Because you've only got 5,000 in contingency in streets.
60%.
That one's 60%?
Is
Well,
it
that
from
makes
just the
sense.
one fund though? Or is it multiple?
Third Street cost savings helps to control. Third Street project is 60% SDC.
Well, that's big. The project we have listed on our CIP is 20%. So, but that's what the state's saying. 60%. So
told
that-
you 20?
John said it was 60.
in our CIP, I was going off our CIP.
The CIP was not including this grant because we were.
Correct.
No.
Plus, like
Given
the
the-
scope, yeah, and plus to add to that, the scope of work was like stormwater was included, so we were gonna try to grab, 10-12% from that.
So we can split it out?
Well,
Not on this.
not on this.
All right, so if you have.
Anything else I missed on there, Ken?
300
We should take-
minus 250. So 109.3.
Okay.
That's a good question. Chris had a good question.
Oh.
Just to throw in there, because it's aligning with the park and giving it a safe route.
Access, yeah.
could we throw SDC funds from the park into that project? Or,
Portion of it.
I don't know, I don't wanna make this too.
I don't see why not, if you can link it to that, but my,
If he needs to see.
Oh, I just.
I can't answer that question. That would probably be an auditor question.
If I may,
Yes, please, Ross.
I don't think you could just arbitrarily take parks funds for that. Usually it has to be in response to like a parks master plan or something. If it's on a parks master plan, you could, but if you don't have that, you probably can't. One of your engineers might be able to help you with that.
Thank you, Ross.
Six months.
These sidewalks are built.
Well, the parks will be done by the time the master plan's done.
But again, if we don't get it, then you're not gonna
It's,
spend it.
sidewalks.
Yeah. I'm okay, Kara, I'm okay with buffering that project, with what we had set aside for that sidewalk.
20?
Yeah.
So if you're a 60-40 split, 65,580 would come out of SDCs, 43,720 would have to come out of streets. So if we take the 20 from the sidewalk installation, then you're looking at having to find 23,720.
That's not bad.
What the size of that project is,
Yeah.
Okay,
So you just need to let me know where you want that to come from.
yeah. Well, that'll also be driven by, and I hate to put this on everybody, but it'll have to be driven by the step increase also. You know what I mean? If we have to manage, I guess I'm just bringing it up to everybody. If we have to start managing like projects compared to step increases for.
Yeah.
So just putting it out there. I don't have the answer today as far as where to shift that money from.
We're talking, this is coming out of streets, right?
Yeah, the streets didn't have enough to cover.
But we would have to find extra revenue to help that.
So here,
Very few FTEs.
Here-
Street.
Well, yeah, but
right, here's an option, Jason.
yeah, go ahead.
You've got, you're currently sitting on 45,000 in contingency and public works reserve. If we did not transfer as much over for the trucks as you wanted to and utilize some of that contingency for the truck. I mean, that's an option. The step increase is an option.
Something we can circle back to, Kara.
Yeah.
Okay, is that, it's lengthy and I know everybody's wants to get through this.
There's some old police cars you can drive.
Leave the lights.
Put the wrap on it, take the light off.
You get to Water Lake real fast.
Kara, a question for you. Page 67 and or 66 and 67. I'm looking at the salary and payroll cost by position and the comparables from last year to this year. The most of the cost of living increases are averaging between 3,000 and 4,000 increase for each person. But there's one for the clerk that increased by 11,000. Is that because it went from clerk to manager? Is that because of the promotion
I don't even know where we're at.
involved in that?
I believe it had more to do with how it was, that's actually a good question.
Where are we at?
66. And this one increased by 11 comparable to last year. Where everybody else
Part-time
had,
last year and full-time.
and full-time, is that, so that accounts for,
I think that's the difference.
that's helpful, thank you.
Cause you came on full-time July.
July would have been
The whole year.
the whole year.
Are some of those numbers skewed because now we actually are doing the right PERS stuff? which can equal.
Well, no, it's just the
flexibility.
wage, it doesn't include the payroll cost. That's just the wage.
So the,
No, she came on full-time July
right, which is,
but the budget was already done
oh,
prior to that. Right?
yeah, that might be where
And
the
when did
difference
the
is.
promotion take place from clerk to manager?
January.
September.
No, it was, December was my 6 months and
Oh, she was,
January,
oh, I'm sorry, I was getting them managers mixed up.
you're talking about the accounting the accounting clerk
The
position.
accounting
right?
clerk
Yeah.
position, yeah.
So that occurred in December was at 6 months, but it didn't go into effect until the beginning of February.
It's the only one and it stood out, which is why it brought my attention to it. And it is, and you know, the rest of them are like 1,000, 3,000, 4,000, and then that one was 11. So I just wanted the clarification, and I know that there was a promotion in there. So, but I just wanted to make sure that,
So I do think also that if I remember correctly, the numbers from this were not actually the step numbers. They were budgeted on the numbers that had been my temporary part-time numbers as opposed to the step increase numbers.
so this isn't the.
Are you talking about last year or this year?
This year, the one right on
The
page
one for
66.
this year is accurate.
Okay, the one for last year is on the next page over and it says
Right.
52,000. And then the one over here, accounting clerk says 63, 4,000 or 482, which is a difference of a little over $11,000. So that's related to the promotion and the step increase and the cost of living. It's all included in that, I'm assuming.
Let me do a quick calculation on what I think. Because I am not the one that,
It was a step and it was a step increase.
I just wanted you to be aware because I don't want this to come back and reflect
no, and
badly
absolutely.
on things. I want it to be out in the open
So,
and clarified. In order to protect you, essentially.
so the 52,000 was based off of a non-wage table number.
Because it was part-time?
Correct.
Okay.
So it was a non-wage table number at that point in time. The number currently is based off of the number currently is based off of the actual wage table number plus the promotion from accounting clerk to accounting manager. And then that number actually also includes if we do a step increase for next year and a 3% COLA.
Okay. All right, so the 52,000 for last year is really the one that's inaccurate
Right.
because it was for part-time rather than your full-time, which you started in July. So that budget was incorrect.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Did you do the $2 park fee? Is that coming in under the general?
General fund, I have it budgeted for, it's in the general fund under revenues. If you go, let's go to page 19. The $2 city services park fee is line item 29.
Gotcha, okay. Oh, highlighted, not that I.
I highlighted them because I wanted people to pay attention to those numbers because those are the ones that we were questioning whether or not they were gonna stay.
Anything else that we need to look at?
Nothing specific, I just, under the appendix, if you go to page 68, and 69, the yellow highlighted is with the 3% COLA, the blue is where it sits right now on the wage table. So just to make you guys aware that that's where the differentiation on those are. There's two separate numbers based off of decisions that are made on COLA and step increase. So if you don't do the COLA, it's the number in blue. If you do the COLA, it's the number in yellow.
Do we still have an SRO?
Why is the SRO budgeted for 2080 if he only works 10 hours a week? Isn't that what he works? That would be 152 weeks.
He's just categorized in as in the police officer position, but he's just part-time, so that's not really necessarily.
Those numbers aren't accurate
Correct.
elsewhere in the
That's
budget.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
And that's all off of a grant for the school. So it's not a cost for the city for that position.
There's zero cost to the city.
So the school gets
$3
it.
or $4 for CIS.
I don't even think it's that much. I want to say it's like 53 cents per pay period. So, yeah, the school has the grant and the school pays us.
But that was why, with the overtime position, because that'll hopefully be utilized for them.
Do you have anything else for us, Ross?
No, I don't.
But just an overall question. So, I mean, we basically started this year in about a $370-some thousand hole, right? And you're confident, even with moving the funds over 170 or so, that we're gonna be able to start this year with a zero balance.
Yes.
When are we gonna know? Will we know that before the actual audit hits us?
No,
We won't know until we get it back.
the audit will be what tells us exactly. However, based off of the numbers that we got from the auditor this year, that technically sit in year 24-25. Based off of that and expenditures. By getting us to a zero balance in the general fund to start this fiscal year, then yes, we can. And I think that my personal opinion is it's gonna definitely take some tightening of the belts, but I don't think it's gonna be that difficult to dig back out of it and replenish those funds. I've been conservative on income streams. Especially property taxes. I think we will actually get more than 430,000. But I want to budget conservatively because of the situation we found ourselves in.
If I may, could I cut in on you just a second? Hello?
Proceed, Russ.
Yeah, So, to answer your question about knowing the numbers, you guys will close the year, of course, July 1. You'll make some adjusting entries, the best ones that you can make that take care of any numbers or money spent that you want to get into last year. And at that point, you can run a preliminary number before the auditors get hold of it. That should be an 80 or 90% number that kind of indicates how you ended up the year. And so July would be a date that you'd be somewhat close to knowing how we ended up the year.
What I've done with the police budget every year since I've been in charge of it is I have a system that I do and it helps keep track of it. So every month I know exactly where I'm at in each of my funds. And I've talked with the mayor about talking with staff about implementing something like that across the board. It's extremely helpful for me because I have not in 14 years of the budget gone over for the police. I've gone over line items of unexpected things, but I haven't gone over the bottom line for the police budget at all.
The line items that he's gone over, he was able to make up for by
Yes,
non-spending.
make
in
up
other areas.
because so and my assistant helps me. I can't take credit for all of it, but it has every line item. It has exactly what was spent that month, what the remainder of it is, and then obviously the total balance of what it was. And then keeping it simple for me, a percentage of work on it. We're gonna talk further about implementing something like that, which will be helpful for all of the staff. That'll help, I think, answer that question like that. Yes, the auditors will help with the bottom line and what a starting balance will be, but knowing where I'm at is helpful for me every month. You know.
This was very clearly written out and easy to understand. In the past, it's been somewhat difficult to follow the numbers, and this was really well done. Thank you for doing that.
I do want to point out to Greg's notation also that I am going to, with the center point spreadsheets that you guys get for council monthly, that says, it spells out what we've budgeted, where we are year to date, and where we are, what we've spent during the course of the month, the previous month. I'm gonna start coming in, I believe, at council meetings at the very beginning to do a quick one over with everybody on things that I'm seeing that are to be aware of. Good and bad. So this is the reason why we're here to, you know, I'm concerned about this, I'm not concerned about that. Things that.
So what we see in the consent agendas, right, that, you know, all of a sudden something will be over 1,000% of budget, but it turned out that it was like a gate valve that they had to fix up at the middle school that one year. And so, I mean, it looks like this big scary number, but it turned out to be a no big deal. And it was just moved from somewhere else. But then very clearly there were things that were coming up that were a big deal that we had no idea about. So I think it would be great to have the county manager come in and talk to us. To point anything out that she finds alarming, because she's in those books every day. We get an email once a month to review it. Without context.
So if I understand, we're meeting one last time for those changes that you're going to enact.
If I understand, it wouldn't be necessary if we approve the budget with changes.
I don't think that the changes that we're making today warrant a whole separate meeting to come look at them. I think we're all in agreement that the changes are the changes and we've softly approved them.
So just a quick, we're starting with a zero balance. We're not gonna have any money in any of the contingencies funds. So we can't go over. We're already borrowing what, 75,
Significant money.
100, 180, 190,000. But we have to pay back next year. So if we,
Start to pay back next year.
if we spend exactly what we budgeted for, we end up with a zero balance starting next year. We have no money to pay those other loans back with, so we really need to tighten the budget up.
So, and I don't disagree with you. But what we do have to keep in mind is,
Just like,
No, I'm
Okay,
saying,
okay,
if it's
okay.
budgeted, then it's allowed to be
Yeah.
spent, right?
we're very
I'm-
careful. We
well-
really are.
Okay, so the mistake got made and we're trying to figure ourselves out of it. I'm not saying we can't. What I'm saying is we're starting in a hole because we're borrowing money. We're starting with a zero balance, no contingencies are coming over, and we have no contingencies built in any of these funds. So just so everybody knows and it's on record, we just need to make sure that hopefully nothing happens, nothing breaks that we're not expecting, right? I just kind of wanted to make sure I was okay with what I'm thinking
Okay.
about this.
He's bringing up a good point. There's no plan in this budget going forward to help dig ourselves out of the hole. And we have a significant amount of money with interest we need to be paying back to those funds. So, we have probably under budgeted for some of the taxes in the new places. Maybe when we get the software actually running on the computers where people can pay their bills timely, maybe we get
That's coming.
some of that,
Mhm.
coming, so maybe some of those money is coming better. But other than that, we don't really have.
Well, we have added, cost of living, which,
Yeah.
go a few months to see how it works out, see where we're at before anybody decides. We're gonna-
And we did that
Yeah.
before.
The risk of
um,
potentially having to eliminate more positions next year.
We waited until
We don't
like
want it.
December for that, or January, and that was Jane Heinrich's time. And we're aware of everything. Mhm.
Okay, given everything, does anybody else have any questions? Comments?
So no additional budget meeting, I guess.
Pardon?
No additional meeting?
There's executive session, yes.
Where they're coming
So
from.
I need a motion to approve the budget with the amendments we've made today. Somebody would like to do that?
I make a motion to approve the budget, the proposed budget with the changes that we made today.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna get a roll call vote. I think that's easier for the, yeah, so a roll call vote.
Robert Davis, aye.
Term I.
Mike, I.
Otter, I.
Featherston, I.
Means I.
Oregon, I.
That's, yeah.
Karen, nay.
Okay, that motion has passed. Do we need another one to approve their proposed tax rate? Or did we do that or the council?
Council.
That's a council. Pardon?
You guys have done it the last 2 years. And I'm going to see the hearing with the council. There is an opportunity.
I'm
You-
sorry, I'm deaf in this year. I can't.
the last 2 years, it's gone through the budget committee and then it goes to the council.
I know the council has to do it. but
Yes.
Do we as well?
No.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you have to approve, the tax rate.
Approving the tax rate.
Okay, so I'll need another motion to, how does this one have to say, or is there something? Approve a proposed budget tax rate.
Look in your minute.
Tax rate in the.
You guys, Ross was trying to speak there. What were you saying, Ross?
Look in the minutes to what you approved last year. That should be the same one.
Should be the same. We've got the minutes.
Three things.
I'm busy looking in the budget manual for what it's supposed to say, but you're supposed to approve the tax rate.
Permanent rate limit, is that what he's referring to?
Yes, if it's in the minutes,
Page 72.
Seven, three, eight.
Okay, so our tax rate is 0.003738.9.
And it would increase by 460,038.
your tax rate shouldn't.
So basically, we're just approving that rate, saying that that's what we've calculated the
Yes.
budget on.
Yes.
Is that what we calculated the budget on?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
So we'll need a motion for that, please. Folks, there's no debate on it. It is what it is.
I make a motion that we accept the permanent tax rate as written, 3.7389.
I second the motion.
I get a roll call vote, please.
For Davis, aye.
Turbine.
Walker,
Potter, I.
Featherston, aye.
Kind I.
Oregon, I.
Askey, aye.
And aye.
Okay. Any other business that we need to? We've approved the budget and the tax rate. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Gordon, second.
Done.
What are we talking about? Is increasing the tax rate? It's increased it by 20.
We don't get to do that.
0.009.
We just, I don't think we get to adjust it. We just gonna say, that's what we think, that's when we figured the
You
numbers
bet.
were.
I know, right?